You can measure acceleration with it.
Well, if it's, let's say we're right, like say it's a stationary plane, just like it seems, and like would it like blow the whole theory that you're talking about with the GPS?
Yeah, GPS would be something totally different. It wouldn't even work. I mean, it would.
Oh,
It would have to
okay.
be
Well, then there you go.
else.
But once you realize it's a stationary plane, then all those tricks will be obvious to you about the way they do those corrections.
Yeah, but if you come to conclusions by decision and by choice, I don't think that's a good strategy. I think it's better to come to
the globe model
based on the evidence.
Yeah, exactly. Like a plane literally wouldn't be able to land on a spinning ball if it was treating it like it's a stationary plane. Like you can't just have a plane treat the Earth like it's stationary and then have it actually be moving. So there you go. That's the debunk you need. That's it. It's over. You can't treat it as stationary and have it be a spinning ball. I mean, I don't know how much easier it needs to get. I mean, there's no way to
every
argue
time you go to land, you'll murder everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, if there was any chance, there was any chance that there would be a difference between treating it like a stationary plane and treating it like a spinning ball, if there was any difference between those two things, which is why we're having this argument or debate for 10 years now, because there's a big difference, right? And so if a pilot treats the Earth as stationary and planar, there's no way it could possibly be a spinning ball and have them just treat it as stationary and planar. What could you possibly say that makes those the same thing?
What would happen to a pilot in his plane if he tried to land on a spinning sphere, but he thought it was a plane? He thought it was flat.
It would be dangerous. I mean, there would be so many dynamical differences. How could I even, like that Lebet guy, the model builder guy, he's trying to do a simulation, because you know how he did like a 2-scale simulation showing how you would definitely see the leading edge of a sphere and you would see it taper off to the sides. You would definitely see curvature from the altitude they're at, like he was showing us when you were on at one time. He's also trying to do one where you actually incorporate the dynamics of a spinning ball. He said it's so hard to calculate even how it would possibly work with all of like the rotations and the gradient of tangential velocities. And then you got like the different angles of all the runways that you might have to like be going the opposite direction of the tangential speed that you'd be having to go backwards on. I mean, there's so many things. It's so complicated.
Make a prediction.
He can't even program the computer to simulate it.
I know, but you're making a claim that pilots would need to account for this. I'm asking you.
Well,
I know. So because you're saying that, you should have an idea of what the consequence would be if it were a spinning ball. If he thought it was stationary, what would happen? I know. So what would happen?
Death.
Yeah, death would be one of the consequences. a lot of death.
No, I'm asking what would happen to the plane,
dude.
That's simple. What would happen?
The difference between flying over a spinning ball. If you're trying to treat the Earth as stationary and planar, but it's actually a spinning ball, you don't think that would be dangerous?
Oh, listen, man. I'm asking you because you're making the claim. I'm
making a claim. I'm just pointing out the obvious, dude. I'm just pointing out the obvious.
So point out the obvious.
It's just 1 and 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 2, bro.
If you're not going to tell me, then you're going to have a hard time. I don't know, convincing yourself that it's true.
What are you talking about? Like why? Like for me,
what's going to happen to the plane what's going to happen?
The difference between like a basketball and a frisbee, right? Like it's not the same thing. A basketball is a totally different thing than a frisbee.
Okay, but what's going to happen to the plane when he tries to land and he thinks he's on a flat stationary Earth, but it turns out it's a spinning ball? What's going to happen?
The Earth is going to be rotating, and he's not going to be in the same eastward tangential velocity in that 1-to-1 relationship that he would need to treat it as stationary. It would have to be completely in sync, so perfectly in sync that it wouldn't even be noticeable that it's spinning. And that's impossible for a plane to do, especially if it leaves from a tangential velocity that doesn't match the destination's tangential velocity. If the destination's going faster, even if he was trained to accelerate to match that 1-to-1 relationship that he would need, then a direct eastward 1-to-1 relationship at that 15 degrees or the 500 more or whatever it needed, even if he could catch up to it or was trained to, which he's not. But even if he did accelerate, he'd have to keep continuing to accelerate sideways with the Earth in a 1-to-1 relationship as it slows down to land. And the planes aren't made to do that. It'd have to have jets on the sides. You have to have Dyson ball wheels and a big, huge field for it to roll in. I mean, all the runways would be catered towards that. And none of it would work, bro. Not even like one bit of it. Even all of the ballers' reasons that they try to say it would be the same for don't work. Like, even if it accelerated, it can't pick up momentum. It can accelerate more, but then it's going to have to continue to accelerate to stay in that one-to-one relationship with the Earth as it slows down to land. There's no way out of this, bro.
Yeah, but you're assuming he'd have to account for something that isn't
the spin of the Earth.
No, yeah, right. You're assuming he'd have to account for something that isn't even apparent.
If it's a spinning Earth, he would have to account for it, right?
All right. You're assuming though that he would have to account for this, even though it's not. Even though it's not apparent, even though he's constantly making corrections all throughout his flight, from when he left wherever he left, and he's in the air, behaving and communicating with the air, with the wind.
Oh, so wait, he's taught to make corrections?
And landing.
You're saying that they're taught to make corrections?
And landing on the ground that's already going to have, a difference compared to the air that he's in, because there's going to be wind. There's no reason he has to make a conscious. There's no reason he has to make a conscious effort to know that the Earth's accelerating in order to do that.
Definitely. I mean, with conscious effort, I mean, no matter what kind of conscious effort he puts in, it still doesn't work, bro. Even if he treated it as a spinning ball, he still wouldn't be able to land. That's the ironic thing here. He's treating it like a stationary level, but even if he were to account for it and somehow like try to catch up to the spin, he'd still have to keep continuing to accelerate with the spin as he slows down to land in a different direction, and he would crash every time. It wouldn't work.
Okay, let me ask you a question. In anywhere in the world, is the wind going to be with respect to the surface below it? Let's say, hey, this is the wind speed. It's with respect to the surface below it.
The stationary surface. Yeah,
and planes fly
in relation to the stationary surface. If it was a moving Earth,
planes fly with respect to the air.
Listen, if they had to deal with winds as well as a spinning ball, there would be two things to deal with, not just one.
But they only deal with the winds. They only fly through the air.
That proves
this is how planes work. Okay.
Yeah.
So when they're flying through the air, it doesn't matter how much faster the Earth is spinning from where they left and where they got to. They're flying through the air. So when they're about to land, they're communicating, with the surface of the Earth with respect to the air that they're already, already aware of. They're already flying through the air.
Yeah.
So whatever changes they're making all throughout their flight are being constantly readjusted based on whatever the air is doing. And whatever the air is doing with respect to the surface is already known to them.
Let me just get this straight. Are you saying the pilot's trained to adjust?
Adjust to what?
The pilot is making these corrections consciously? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not what I'm saying. You would know what I'm saying if you weren't constantly interrupting me. If you weren't constantly interrupting me, you would hear what I'm saying. I'm saying clearly the pilots are adjusting based on whatever the air's doing, whatever the wind speed is doing. This is why they're
not trying to adjust to the spin of the Earth.
Yeah, there's no need to do that. That's not a necessary thing to do.
Well, the only way they wouldn't have to do that is if it weren't spinning, bro.
No, they wouldn't have to do that if it were or if it weren't spinning.
Really?
Because of the reasons I'm explaining to you. They make negotiations with respect to the wind and the air. The wind speed is already in reference to whatever the surface is. So the winds with respect to the surface, they're flying with respect to the wind. There's no reason for them to worry about whatever the Earth is doing differently from where they took off to where they're landing.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that? So what would the difference be if they were actually flying over a stationary plane? What would the difference be for the pilot? There wouldn't
be a difference.
Oh, see, that's where you're just sounding completely ridiculous, bro. It's absurd that you could even say that with confidence.
All right, what would the difference be?
The difference would be that one would be a spinning ball surface and the other one would be a stationary plane surface. I don't know how much more simple can it be to explain?
What would the difference be with respect to the pilot's experience?
The experience would be
what would be the difference in his experience?
A lot with the spinning ball. He would experience death because he would not be able to land on a moving surface, no matter what you say about the winds. that would be a second thing to deal with. The winds are pushing him in all directions, and he's got to somehow have this complete sync with this eastward moving Earth. So he could treat it as if it's stationary. And that'd be two things to deal with. The wind has nothing to do with it. The stationary Earth is the only way he can treat it as stationary. I don't know that you sound like you're just avoiding it.
If he's flying through the air, and there's a wind, a 15-mile-per-hour wind, he's flying through the air. What? If there's a 15-mile-per-hour wind with respect to the ground,
no, wind's going all directions.
Hold on, dude. Regardless if the ground's moving or not, there's a 15-mile-per-hour wind on this day.
No matter what, there's always a 15-mile-per-hour wind.
Stop for a second, dude. On this day, the day this pilot is flying, there's a 15-mile-per-hour wind. Okay.
Yeah.
With respect to the surface of the Earth, because that's how wind is measured with respect to the surface. Yeah. Regardless of how fast the Earth is moving, the wind is moving with respect to the surface. So he's flying through the air. When he goes to land, he's still going to land with respect to the surface of the Earth. With the 50 miles per hour with respect to the surface of the Earth. So it doesn't matter how fast the Earth's moving. He's already.
It would matter. It would matter a lot. What do you mean? How could you say it wouldn't matter? Because the Earth moving is totally a different situation than the wind blowing the plane. That'd be two things to deal with. What's the difference? Two. The difference. What's the difference between the Earth moving? It'd be a curved spinning ground that it's landing on, rather than a stationary planar one. I mean, why would I have to say that over again? Because one's different than the other.
The wind is moving with respect to the surface. So whatever the surface is doing, the wind's moving 15 miles per hour faster, right?
What?
So it doesn't matter how fast the Earth's moving. The wind's moving 15 miles per hour faster, and he's moving with respect to the air. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Sure, it does.
The Earth could be moving 1,000,000 miles per hour, and if the air is moving 1,000,000 plus 15 miles per hour, and he's moving with respect to the air.
Are you even hearing yourself right now? You said that the Earth could be moving 1,000,000 miles per hour, and it wouldn't even matter because the wind's moving. Do you
get he's moving through the air with respect to the air. All that matters is what's the air doing with respect to the Earth.
No, it's what the plane is doing with respect to the ground it's about to land on. That's what we're talking about, bro.
Yes, exactly.
The plane can be affected by winds, yeah. But if it had to land on a spinning Earth that was moving 15 degrees tangentially eastward consistently, that doesn't stop, then he would also have to account for that. He would have to totally know that that's the case. I mean, he's got lives in his hands, right? He's got his own life and then his passengers, right? So it would have to be a perfect science. And there would have to be only one answer to this, not this philosophizing about winds that might be more effective or more or like in relation to the Earth. If the winds are in relation to the Earth, it means nothing, dude. If the Earth were spinning, it would not be able to treat it as stationary. It's simple as that.
Planes fly through the air, though.
Yeah, great. Oh my God, revelation.
They fly through the air. So if the air is moving with respect to the Earth, then it doesn't matter that the Earth's moving, as long as the air is moving with it. The plane's flying in it. They're not gonna have a problem when they're landing. The only problem they're going to have is whatever the difference is between the air and the Earth, which is called wind.
What are you talking about? The Earth moving would totally be a different situation. I don't get why you think it could be stationary and then it could be moving and it would be the exact same thing. That makes no sense.
It's conservation. I don't know how you do it.
No, conservation of momentum could be 500 when it starts off. Then it needs 1,000 miles an hour when it's at the equator. So where does it get the extra 500? And how does it continue, even if it could accelerate that extra 500 miles per hour by the time it gets there, even if it's incrementally and you think of it as like, oh, just a little bit at a time, even if the pilot were trying to do that, he would have to continue to accelerate, keep up with the Earth to treat it as stationary in this perfect one-to-one relationship, which would be a feat on its own just to keep up with the Earth sideways somehow as it's trying to land. But it would be slowing down to land and still having to accelerate faster in a sideways direction with the eastward tangential velocity and the difference of 500 miles per hour compared to its original conserved momentum of only 500 miles per hour. So it doesn't work. Even if the atmosphere were like pinning him to the one-to-one relationship with the Earth, even if the winds were perfect to make that happen, then it would never be able to fly against the winds because it would be fixed with the winds the way you have to think about it. But no, then it wouldn't be able to fly.
It doesn't have to be fixed with the winds.
It would have to, or it's
not fixed with the winds. No.
Well, then what are you talking about the winds?
It's flying with respect to the air. That's it.
Yeah, with respect
to the air doesn't have to be fixed to it. It's obviously flying through it, so it's not fixed.
But it's in a separate reference frame, so it doesn't work, bro. Come on.
Yeah, but it's not fixed with the air. It's just flying with respect to the air.
Yeah, but then if the ground were spinning, it'd be a different situation than if the ground were stationary. I mean, how much more do you need, dude?
Yeah, if the air was, you're right. If the air was doing something different than the ground was doing, that'd be a problem. If the ground were moving 1,000 miles per hour and the air wasn't, that would be a problem because the plane's flying through the air. Right, but that's not what's happening. The air's moving with the surface, give or take the wind speed.
Yeah,
the plane's flying through the air.
This is how it works, dude. Give or take doesn't work even if the wind were like in lockstep, which you can't even claim because of fluid dynamics. But even if that were the case, it's just ridiculous to think that the spinning Earth and the wind are like the same exact thing, because wind's going all directions, bro. And the plane can be moving in every direction. It could have to do a loop around and head against the spin to land on a runway that's like facing upwards and in the opposite direction of the spin, right? And then somehow you've got to believe that it's in the air, so it's moving backwards just the right amount to be in sync with this Earth, as it's like doing a loop around to land like in a northwest direction towards this runway that's facing whichever direction. It doesn't make it. The calculations are impossible to even think that someone would be like capable of doing that in the cockpit. They would have to have like a little gauge that says this is how fast the Earth is spinning, and you're definitely going to have to speed up to treat it as stationary, and somehow still continue to accelerate with the Earth as you slow down to land, which the planes aren't even made to do that, dude. I mean, none of it works, bro. It's like literally impossible. It debunks your globe so emphatically. And all you said is he's in the air and the winds are moving with respect to the Earth. That makes no difference. A consistently moving Earth to land on would be different than a stationary Earth to land on. I don't know how you would think they wouldn't be.
I think he's rotationary.
You got to trust the science, Dave.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But there's no science involved. There's like the total lack of common sense. Like, this is just common sense, bro. What'd you say, Snack? Because I'm sure it was funny and I couldn't understand you. What was your joke? Can you say something?
I think he's rotationary.
I mean, this one's in your face because it's like, this is dangerous otherwise. It's like we can philosophize about how, oh, yeah, I guess we talk about maybe refraction sometimes a little bit, or maybe, some kind of like, looks like the sun's going like below the horizon and we can't really, tell sometimes. But this one, like, everybody flies in a plane. Everybody knows you can see the runway out in front of you. It's just there. You're just aiming at a stationary runway. If it was moving
if you're tilting and wobbling,
come on, right?
And spinning, where the fuck is your destination going to be when you leave, bro, right?
Right? It'd be like totally different. All the flight paths would be different. You would like meet the city where it's going to be, not where it is when you take off. It'd be like I always say, it'd be like if they came out with a video game, and and you go to the kid, and you're like, oh, this is a really cool video game. It's exactly like the spinning ball Earth and all the same speeds, and you have to get like a lot of like acceleration going to like keep up with the Earth to meet your destination when it's at the equator, when you like left from the North Pole with zero conserved momentum. And like all these things are like really cool, and you're like flying through the cities and dodging buildings that are coming at you. You're totally in a separate reference frame, and it's like just like the Earth, like they say it is. But there's this other video game, and it's just like they train the pilots. It's a stationary plane. There's no movement at all of the Earth. It's just nice and easy to land. The other one, like it's really hard to land. And in fact, you can't. You crash every time. But the crazy thing is these video games are exactly the same video game somehow.
Okay, Dave, real quick. You got a ball, right? There's a 0 mile an hour wind in front of you. But then 10 feet in front of that, there's like a 20 mile an hour wind. If I throw a light little ball, nice little empty hollow ball, plastic ball, pit ball from Chuck E. Cheese, you throw that in front of you, straight ahead, into the 20 mile an hour wind. What do you think the ball's gonna do?
I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, you can claim that the wind, like the pilots put the faith of the wind pushing them to be in that one-to-one relationship sideways. Like they just put all their faith in the lives of everybody on the plane, and like in this faith that the wind is going to move the plane to be in sync with the Earth, so it could treat it as station. I mean, you can think about it that way, but that's not
Dave,
only
slow
dangerous
down,
but
bud. Slow
ridiculous
down,
too.
man. This ain't even about the wind. What does the ball do, dude?
You were saying wind, right? 20-mile-an-hour
Yeah,
wind.
but it's not really about the wind, though. What does the ball do?
But the wind can push the
Spinning.
ball. Yeah.
The wind's gonna move the ball, right? So if an object goes
Right.
into a medium and the medium's moving a certain speed, it's gonna have an effect on the thing in the medium.
Yeah, and then sometimes the winds go in the opposite direction of the direction the plane would need to go.
It's not
Like it
about the
needs
wind, Dave.
more.
It's not about the wind, bro. Focus, dude.
Like
Focus.
you said wind. How am I not focusing? When you said
Yeah,
wind, I'm
focus.
saying
The
wind.
ball. So you have an object in a medium, and if the medium's doing something, it's gonna transfer that onto the object, right?
The medium's the wind, or what are you saying?
If there's an object in a medium and the medium's doing something, it's gonna transfer that onto the object, right?
Are you saying the medium's acting like a wind on the plane?
Dude, if there's a medium, right? The medium.
Yeah.
And the air is doing something, pushing down, pushing up, pushing left, pushing right, whatever the medium's doing, if it's moving at a certain speed, moving at a slower speed, whatever the medium's doing, it's going to transfer that onto the object in the medium, right?
Yeah, because the medium has winds going in all directions, so it could be blown in whatever way.
It's not about wind, dude. Stop saying wind.
Well, I don't know what you're saying then. If you're not saying
I
it,
used
if you're
wind
saying
for
it's
an
pushing the
example to show you
plane,
that the medium would be transferring the motion onto the object.
how? If it's not a wind, how?
What do you mean how? You throw a ball into a medium, it's going to do what the medium does. If I throw a ball into a raging river,
No.
it's going to move with the raging river. No, you think it's just going to stand there still? So the ball's just going to stand there still and not move with the raging river?
You started with saying a 20-mile-per-hour wind is going to push the ball.
It's not about the wind, it's about the medium.
Okay, well, I don't know what you're talking about.
In a medium, Dave, if you put an object in a medium, is the object going to do
what medium are we talking about? In the air?
Not even listening, bro. Never mind.
No, dude. If you
your whole thing's convoluted and spastic, but go ahead.
Jeremy,
I'm just letting you know it's spastic.
Oh, it's not spastic at all, because you said wind and then you said a medium. What's the difference between air that's moving something and a wind that's moving something? How could the air be just a medium that's moving it without it being a wind? Tell me.
So you guys don't fight. Think of it as a river. Think of the medium as a river. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, no, it's not about me not understanding it, because if you have a current, that's like a wind current. A current of water and a wind current are very similar. Yes, right. So you can't just say it's a medium that's moving the plane without some kind of some kind of reason that it would move the plane. It can't just say because it's in the medium, it's moving automatically.
It has to have some form of interaction.
Yeah, there has to be a force. Yeah, there has to be a mechanism.
So is what he's saying that you're holding the ball on the beach, yeah, or whatever I'm talking about. You throw it in the river, yeah. It's now jumped into this medium. This medium is doing something. At some point, you're going to need to get out of this medium and back onto that dry land. But don't worry, treat it as if it's stationary.
Yeah.
No, Jeremy's saying the medium is the river. Analogy? Listen, guys. Jeremy's saying the medium is the river. You throw a ball in the medium, the river, and the flow of the river is going to determine where the ball is going to go. Right. That's what Jeremy's saying.
I understand that completely. I mean, I've had this analogy over and over again.
Yeah, we agree.
Hours of discussion. And if you're talking about the flow of the river, then you're talking about the flow of the air compared to the flow of the river, right? Flow of air is wind. I don't know how else to describe it, unless there's a way of describing it. Yeah, you have to have a flow.
Dynamics,
you have to have something that you have to have something that's actually moving the plane, right? If you don't call it a wind, what is it?
It's literally fluid dynamics. Unless you're dealing with solids, it's fluid dynamics.
Yeah, you're not going to be
your whole argument you've been saying the wind's moving at 500 miles an hour. The wind's moving at 500 miles an hour. You put a plane inside you put a ball or a plane or any object inside a wind that's moving 500 miles an hour. What's going to happen? Do you think the object's going to start doing 500 miles an hour with the wind? Think the wind's going to have some kind of effect on the object, Dave?
Hey,
use your head, dude.
Jeremy,
use your head.
But, hey, wait, you know what? You saying for me to use my head right now is very ironic because you're totally wrong. It's not even about a 500 mile per hour wind. I never talked about a 500 mile per hour wind. The only reason it has a conserved momentum of 500 miles per hour is because it was on an Earth that supposedly was turning 500 miles per hour, not the wind.
The air is moving. The medium. The air is moving 500 miles an hour.
The air is not.
The air is moving 500 miles an hour.
No,
Dave, the air is moving 500 miles an hour, right? This was your whole argument. The air is moving 500 miles an hour.
It's not my argument. You totally misunderstood my argument, and then you're telling me to use my head. You don't even listen to my argument.
Okay, planes have no problem landing. Let's hear your argument. There's no problem with planes landing on a spinning globe.
Because
let's hear your argument.
There's no wait. So you think it's a spinning globe now?
I'm steel manning the globe. I want to hear your argument against it because I could have swore I heard 500 mile an hour air or something that you were saying. So
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so what's the problem?
The air is not the reason that the ballers give that it works for the 500 mile per hour conserved momentum. You think it's the air that's making it do that?
What's your argument, Dave? There's no problem with the plane landing on a spinning globe. What's the argument?
I'm steel manning what the globe says.
Don't steel man them. Give me your
conservation of momentum.
I'm steel manning them. You give me your argument.
Yeah, but you don't understand their argument first. You can't steel man the globe unless you know what the globe is claiming. The globe claims that the reason that we allow that there's a conserved momentum to start off with is because the plane was on the Earth, not because the wind was moving it.
No one's talking about wind. Here, I'm steel manning a globe where you give your argument. There's no problem with planes landing on a spinning globe that's rotating.
Okay, but how could that be if it needed an extra 500 miles per hour between where it took off at 500 miles per hour conserved momentum because of the ground it was on, then it needs to fly to the equator where there's a 500 mile per hour difference in the tangential velocity, and it didn't have that conserved momentum. It only had 500. So now it needs an extra 500 to be in that one-to-one relationship with the Earth so it could just treat it as stationary. How's it get the extra 500?
So you're saying the plane's in a medium, and the medium's going 500 miles an hour at one spot, right?
Nope. I'm saying it's not about the medium going 500 miles per hour. The globe doesn't even claim that. Get that out of your head. Use your head. Use your head, Jeremy.
What's the tangential speed? What's the tangential speed then, Dave? Tangential speed of what?
The globe is not claiming that the wind is going 500 miles per hour. You understand that, right?
I didn't say wind. I said medium. Use your ears.
How could
the plane's in a medium that's moving 500 miles an hour, right, Dave?
How is the air pushing the plane if it's not a
Dave,
wind?
is the plane in the globe model, is the plane in a medium that's going 500 miles an hour?
What do you mean by medium?
Air.
Okay, so what is air blowing against the plane called?
Dude, is the plane in a medium, air, that's going 500 miles an hour? Is that what you meant by tangential velocity?
You seriously don't get that them trying to say it's a medium without calling it a wind is a contradiction and debunks them right there? You don't get that?
What?
I mean, winds go in opposite direction. What if it's a westward wind in the medium that's supposed to be pushing it eastward?
What happens then? You earlier said something's going at 500 miles an hour at tangential speed. What is?
That's when it took off. That's why the Glovers claim it has that conserved momentum because it was on the Earth when it was moving that fast.
Yeah. So the Earth. So in their model, the Earth. So in their model, the Earth and the air above the Earth.
500. Yeah, it's transferred from the Earth, not from the air or the medium.
Okay, let me just finish because this is fucking been going on for years and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you haven't understood.
The ground and the air above the. Never mind, Dave. Go ahead.
I'm sure you're looking for a way to get out because you're not making any sense.
I'm not looking for a way to get out. I want to explain your own argument to you, and so I can show you. But you can't because you're so fat. You can't stop talking. You can't stop.
I'm going to give you the floor, bro.
Okay, but I want to have a few back and forths, but you go on this long tirade every time.
All right, I won't do that. You want me to make my argument, or do you want to start? I mean, I would ask
go ahead,
you,
Jeremy.
My wife's yelling at me for yelling.
I would just ask you, how is it that the pilot can treat the Earth as stationary and planar if it's a spinning ball? Like, do you see that there would be differences at all? Does that make any sense to you?
Dave, the plane takes off. The ground's moving 500 miles an hour. The air above the ground, where it's now in, because it's in the air, it's also moving 500 miles an hour, right? With the rotating Earth.
Well, wind's going all directions. So what if the wind's going westward?
No one said wind. No one said wind.
I don't get why you think there's a difference between air moving and wind.
In the globe model, the ground and the air above the ground at this one spot where the plane is now in is all moving at 500 miles an hour, right?
Well, if it was a globe, I mean, you can't assume that it's all moving exactly. They don't even claim lockstep. They have to acknowledge fluid dynamics. So they can't even claim that the air is in lockstep. Also, the winds would be the only thing that pushes the plane. The medium can't push the plane if it's not a wind.
Dave, is the ground and the air moving at 500 miles an hour in the spot where the plane is?
The theory is that the wind or the air, the medium, could never really be in lockstep. That's what they have to admit, because fluid dynamics doesn't allow it to be in lockstep. So there's a problem right there to begin with. But if you want to call
that's a whole
medium,
argument. That's a whole different
you want to
argument,
imagine that the medium. Well, no, but if you want to imagine that the medium is carrying the plane to be in lockstep or in sync with the Earth, then you have to explain the mechanism that this medium has to do that. And I don't know what else to say. How do you do that without calling it a wind?
Dave, yes or no? Is the air in their model where the plane is, where the ground's moving 500 miles an hour? Is the air also going 500 miles an hour with it?
No, it's not.
Well, then you don't know their model, bro.
No, because their model says the wind's going all directions, and the wind is the air.
You're not talking about the wind. We're talking about the air in their globe model.
Dude, do you understand that the air can't just be a thing that you call a medium and say that it's moving the plane? It has to have a mechanism to move the plane with. Just because the plane is in what you call a medium of air, it doesn't move the plane unless there's a force that medium is impending on the plane.
Do you know what they call wind on the globe, Dave? They call the wind a direction of air that's moving against the rotation of Earth. So if at the equator the air is moving with the ground 1,000 miles an hour, if it starts moving 1,001 miles an hour, they'll say there's a 1 mile an hour wind. We're not talking about the wind. We're talking about how fast the air is moving.
Yeah, but that's what they just wait. The way you just explained it says that if it's a 1 mile per hour wind, that means the air, the medium's moving faster than the Earth or slower or whatever, right? You're saying that they actually gauge it by calling it a wind of 1 mile per hour. Yes, so how are you saying it's different?
Because the air is moving with the ground, and then if it moves out of position with the ground, that's where you have a wind. If there's no wind at the equator, the air and the ground is just moving 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, but do you understand, for the medium to actually impart a force on the plane, it would have to act like a wind?
No, I don't understand that.
But I don't get where to know. I don't know where to begin with you, because I don't know how you imagine the medium is forcing the plane to move in one direction without some kind of mechanism that the air forcing the plane to do would actually, how that would work without it being something similar to a wind, I guess. You know, I mean, what else do you want to call it?
The air is a medium, right?
Yeah, of course.
The plane's in this medium.
Sure.
Okay. If we put an object inside of a medium, what's the object going to do? It's going to be.
Well, it depends on which direction the medium's going.
Okay, fine, but it's going to react to the medium, right? The medium's going to influence the object.
Yeah, but in this case, the air, which is the wind included, is the medium.
Dude, this isn't wind. Stop talking about wind. This isn't any has nothing to do with wind.
I don't know how you can call them separate things if it's forcing the plane to do anything.
In their model, it's separate. The air is moving at 1,000 miles an hour. There's no wind, right at the
Well,
equator.
then what's moving the plane then? What's the mechanism?
If there's, dude, at the equator, the air is moving 1,000 miles an hour, right?
That's what they say, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now the plane's in a medium that's moving 1,000 miles an hour. Now it's going to go to a different medium, right? It's going to move up in its latitude, and it's going to move to a different medium that's moving at a different speed, right?
Yeah. So why would it speed up?
Okay, because when you put an object in a medium, the objects are affected by the medium.
But like a current, yeah, because a current, the air current or the water current, right? I don't know. Can you give it a word?
Current. I don't know
What's
if I would call it a
mechanism?
current.
What's forcing the plane to speed up? What's pushing the plane to speed up? What's causing that?
Because when you put an object in a medium, the object is affected by the medium, right?
How?
What do you mean how? I thought we went through that when you threw the ball. We have a ball in our hands. There's no wind in front of you. 10 feet in front of you, there's a 20-mile-an-hour wind. You throw the ball into the medium.
Okay, so you're calling it a wind again. You're saying 20-mile-an-hour wind.
I'm using this as an example.
What other example can you give without calling? Can you give an example without calling it a wind?
Okay, the medium of air is moving at 20 miles an hour in front of you. You're standing there with the ball. You throw the ball into the medium. Is it affected by the? Is the ball affected by the medium?
So the air is moving faster in front of you than it is where you are. Right? You're saying the air in front of you is 20 miles an hour, and you're not calling it a wind. What's going to force the ball if it's not a wind?
In their model, it's not a wind. It's just the air is moving with the earth.
But you realize how ludicrous it is for them to just say it's air and forcing the plane to do something, and then say it's different than the wind. You realize that that's where they first make their that's where it's ridiculous from the start to even think that the medium could be moving the plane without it being a wind.
That's how that's a whole different argument, and that's how their model works. But we know that
doesn't work. Just because they call it air doesn't mean that the air moves the plane. It doesn't work, bro. You can't just say air moves the plane and then say that but it's just air and it's because it's in the air, but there's wind, which is the air, which could be moving the opposite direction. So it doesn't work, bro. It's a total contradiction.
We know if you put an object in a medium, the object is affected by the medium, right?
Yeah, like the flow of water or the flow of air.
Okay, so now that we know that objects and mediums are, when you put an object in a medium, the medium affects the object. In their model,
I think if it's air, it could be going in all directions, right?
In their model, they have a speed that the air is moving. It's moving with the Earth at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. So if you put a plane in the air,
Jeremy, they don't claim that the air is in lockstep to begin with. And they can't claim that the air is in lockstep because the air itself could be moving the opposite direction. So it's not in lockstep and it could be going the opposite direction. The air is the wind. There is no separation there. And if you're going to call it something different, you have to actually have a name for it. You can't just say it's air moving the plane without it acting like a wind on the air. I mean, I can't even believe that you're like believing that this works for them. It doesn't.
That's not even true. That's not even true. I told you, if there's the air above the equator is moving 1,000 miles an hour. If it moves 1,001 miles an hour, then you get wind. Other than that, if there is no wind, the air is just moving at 1,000 miles an hour in their model.
So you're saying if it's moving faster, you're calling it a wind, but if it's in lockstep, it's not a wind?
What do you think the globe calls wind? Do you think the globe says there's 1,000 mile an hour wind happening? Do you think the globe says there's 1,000 mile an hour wind happening?
That's how
0 mile an hour.
Yeah, it'd be zero. If it's no wind, then it's 1,000 miles an hour.
That's what I'm telling you. So there's no wind. So there's no wind. Forget the wind. The plane goes in the medium. It's moving 1,000 miles an hour. Then the plane goes up in latitude, up towards the north, and changes its latitude. Now the plane's in a medium that's going 999 miles an hour. You don't think that affects the plane?
But the thing is that, Jeremy, that the globe doesn't even try to claim that. There's different answers. Some of the guys that think, I don't know, somehow they're thinking that the medium could move the plane without it blowing the plane or pushing the plane. I don't know how you can think that either yet. I don't think, maybe you're thinking it through. But for the medium, to be like pushing the plane, it has to act like a wind on the plane. Whether you call it a wind or not, I don't care. But that medium could also be moving westward, which would actually slow the plane down, and it would be more out of sync with the Earth, right? So there would be like a big challenge there, right? And then even if somehow this wind were pushing the plane, to catch up with the Earth, then it would have to depend on that wind to keep pushing the plane as it's slowing down to land, so it could treat the Earth as stationary. And that doesn't work, because you have to have all your faith praying that the wind is going to blow you sideways, so that then you could just treat the Earth as stationary when you're landing on it. You think about how ridiculous and dangerous that would be. And if it was the pilot that was, most of the ballers realize that doesn't work, and they start claiming that the pilot would have to do these corrections. You'd have to consciously, over an incremental period, as he gets towards the equator, you'd have to accelerate 1.1, a mile every mile. It would have to be just a little bit, and but then the pilots aren't trained to do that. But even if they were conscious of doing that, they couldn't just gain momentum, because they only had 500 miles per hour from where they started off, from being on the Earth, not from the wind, from being on the Earth. So it gets its 500 mile per hour conserved momentum from the Earth spinning that it was on, not from the air moving it. That's not where the 500 miles per hour comes from. It comes from, they say, from the ground that it was on. So when it gets in the air, then even if we let them beg the question and keep that 500 mile per hour conserved momentum, it has to gain an extra 500 mile per hour acceleration. It can't gain momentum. It can only accelerate more. And we have a cruising speed, so that debunks that anyway. But even if the pilot were conscious of it, and it was accelerating to catch up to the city that it was trying that's moving faster than where he started out, even if it were, it would have to continue to accelerate sideways faster at that same exact speed, at that same exact, it has to be exact, right? It have to continue to accelerate sideways with the Earth as it goes down to 0 miles per hour in the opposite direction, or any direction, depending on the runway. So it doesn't work, because it would have to somehow then be flying backwards to keep up with the Earth, so it could treat it as stationary when it's landing, or sideways, or whatever angle it's at. It doesn't work. It didn't have that same conserved momentum.
If you have an object and it's in a medium, and the medium's moving at a certain speed, and then the object moves to a new medium that's doing a different speed, it's going to be affected. There's going to be an effect there.
Yeah, but
do you understand that? Do you understand that?
Yeah, of course, Dave? I understand that. And
okay,
it would have to be a wind.
Hold on, man. You just went on a whole long tirade.
I don't get why you don't get it.
Just hold on, bro. So we got the object. It's in a medium. It's moving at a certain speed and moves to a new part of the medium that's doing a different speed. It's gonna be affected by it. It's either gonna make it go faster or slower,
or the opposite direction. Yeah, faster or slower, depending on which way the wind's blowing.
No, not wind. Stop saying wind, dude. It's about the medium of the Earth that they claim is spinning with the ground.
Well, you realize you have to explain how the air can move the plane if it's not a wind.
Like, bro, you're like a glober. You keep bringing up wind. We're not talking about wind.
You're like a glober, thinking that the wind and the air are two separate things in the way they affect the plane.
I wasn't trying to insult you just there. I'm saying this isn't about wind, dude. Stop saying wind. This is about just a medium that they say the Earth is what the Earth's doing of the air.
But you can't explain the medium moving it. There's no mechanism to move the plane.
There is a mechanism to move the plane. We just went through it. When it changes mediums, when it changes the speed of the medium that it enters, it's going to be affected by the speed of the medium. That's the mechanism.
Well, you can't just call it a speed of a medium without explaining what the force on the plane is. What's forcing the plane to do anything? How could it be forced to do anything if it's not a wind?
Because when you have an object in a medium,
Oh my God.
It's affected by the speed and direction of the medium, right?
Yeah, but and if it's a river, it's the flow of the water, and the flow of the air is wind, bro.
All right, so you just can't grasp that the globe says that this thing. So you want to do a whole nother argument, is what you want to do.
No, it's not at all. I'm saying that their claim from the very start that the air is something different than the wind, or that the air somehow could be pushing the plane without it pushing the plane like a wind. That doesn't make any sense from the start. If you don't realize that, I don't know how to. I'm baffled that you aren't getting this. I'm baffled. The air can't move the plane. How could it push the plane? How can the air push the plane? What's pushing the plane?
Because when you have an object in a medium, in the medium.
Hey, Flatman, do you want to try to explain it to him? I think it's just me, maybe. He doesn't want to agree with me.
No, I see where both of you guys are coming from. I don't know how you guys aren't reaching the conclusion. Yeah, I get you.
Well, do you think that the air could be moving the plane without it pushing it? How could it push it faster? And even if the wind moved perfectly with the Earth the way they need it to, it doesn't work. So it doesn't even matter if we agree on this point. But somehow he thinks the medium could be carrying the plane, but there's no mechanism. You'd have to have something that actually moves the plane. You can't just assume. You can't just call it a medium and assume it's in the medium that moves it, because the medium could be blowing in the opposite direction. The medium could be westward or south or north or east-west. I mean, there's all different ways the medium blows.
You got jet streams and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna lean more towards your way, bro. But yeah, I mean, I see where Jeremy's coming from. You know.
Well, then maybe you could try to figure out the difference. What's he saying? What do you think he's meaning? Like, how is he meaning that the air moves the plane? What's the mechanism?
Go ahead, Jeremy.
The mechanism is the globe model they have at every latitude. The mechanism is at every latitude they have the air moving at different speeds. So when you put an object in a medium that's moving different speeds, the object is affected by the speed of the medium.
Yeah, but when you explain it that it's moving 1 mile per hour faster than the Earth is moving, then you just start describing it as a wind. But when I say it's a wind, then you say it's not about wind. Or if you have to describe the way that the ball might be pushed, you call it a wind. You can't just say the ball's pushed by the medium, because it's a wind if it's in the air. The flow of water in a river is the current of water. The current of air is called a wind.
Okay, but there's also air moving without wind. You realize that in the globe model. They have air moving and there's no wind. You realize that?
But you realize that doesn't work, right?
That's regardless if that works or not. That's a whole different argument than what you're making. You realize that in their model, the air is moving.
Logic. The air can't be just moving with the Earth. And then, I know that's why they have to think of it as like a single day.
It's a whole different argument.
Yeah, but wait a minute. First of all, you realize that they do not claim lockstep to begin with. There's fluid dynamics, right? They
absolutely claim lockstep because if the air is moving at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, then they say there's zero wind.
Right. They have to say it that way, because otherwise it's just stationary, right?
That's the lockstep, dude. If there's no wind at the equator, they say that the air is moving at 1,000 miles an hour with the ground. So they have air movement with no wind. You got to get this wind thing out of your head, bro. It's fucking me up.
No, it's not. It's not fucking me up. It's the first contradiction in this argument that they try to make. But even so, the ballers, and in fact, any baller that comes in here, I guarantee you, they will not claim lockstep any longer. They used to, but they don't, because they know fluid dynamics is a thing, and it wouldn't be in lockstep. Plus, when you go up to a higher altitude, it wouldn't be in lockstep anyway, because it's a greater circle, right? The air's a greater circle around the globe, so it's not the same. It's like a racetrack. If you go up higher, the air would have to move faster to keep up with the Earth in this medium that somehow moves, even though it's not the wind that moves in all directions, which is a total contradiction on its face to begin with. So it doesn't work. And even if the medium were in lockstep, it still wouldn't work, because the medium would then have to continue to blow the plane 500 miles per hour faster than where it started as it's slowing down to land. You can't have it work that way. You can't just imagine this magic air as a medium that keeps the plane in lockstep without a mechanism for it to be a wind that pushes it. I don't know how many times I need to repeat this, but it does not work.
Yeah, that's a whole different argument than planes can't land on a globe. This is a whole new argument where gases don't rotate with solid bodies. That's the argument you want to be making, not this other one. Your other one doesn't make sense. This one does make sense.
It's exact same argument, dude. Because they would have to continue accelerating as they're slowing to land, and the Earth would be moving at a different tangential velocity, even if it was slightly different, right? Even just a slight bit different, the wheels would break off. And they would never put their faith in the wind moving the plane. Think about it. Think about how dangerous that would be. Well, the medium better be pretty consistent today, boys. Otherwise, we might have a problem landing. It doesn't make any sense, bro. The medium's the air, and if it blows the plane, it's called a wind. If it moves the plane at all, it's called a wind.
You know, would be a good addition to your argument perspective. Ask Jeremy, since he's still manning the model, because he claims the medium is making the plane on its own change speeds, right, as the different rotations needed.
How could that be without it being a wind?
Just give it to him as a present, right? I hear you. But ask him, if that's the case, what happens when the plane turns around?
Yeah, exactly.
Into the medium.
Right. If that's why I said at the beginning, like, even if the medium was forcing the plane in this one-to-one relationship, it would never be able to fly against the spin then. Right? Because it would be locked in by the medium.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's going around the equator or against the spin or whatever. It's all moving in 1,000 miles an hour. Like if you're at the equator, it's all going 1,000 miles an hour. There's basically nothing happening. You're just going at 1,000 miles an hour. That's why there's no Coriolis at the equator, they say, because nothing's happening. It's only when you enter a new medium, when you enter a new area of tangential speed, where you would have some kind of effect.
Yeah, but you're in the medium. The medium is moving 1,000 miles an hour. Now, if you go against that medium, you can't make the claim that it's not doing anything. Because before you said that same medium is causing the plane to go faster and slower. So now you
it's
can't
only
just
going
affecting it when it's turned around.
It's only going 1,000 miles an hour, not in relation to the ground, in relation to some outside reference frame. So according to you, you're in the plane in the air. The ground's moving, the air is moving. You're all moving together. There's no speed. You're not going against anything. It's not wind. It's not wind. You just gotta get this wind thing out of your head.
I didn't say. Who said wind? You said a medium, right? So we can envision a medium of water, right, flowing in one direction at 1,000 miles an hour. Correct?
Okay.
Okay. So now you have your boat, which is your plane. Now your plane can only go 500 miles an hour, right? So how is it going up that medium? How is it making any headway if the plane turns around?
Because in the stream or water analogy, the ground is also the ground of the stream and the riverbank, and everything is moving with the water.
You still got to go upriver. You still got to go upriver.
You can go anywhere you want. You can go if you're in a stream. You're on a boat. It's in a stream moving 1,000 miles an hour, but the whole riverbank's moving 1,000 miles an hour, and the ground underneath you is moving 1,000 miles an hour, and everything's moving 1,000 miles an hour. You're not fighting any current. You can go anywhere you want. Hold on a second.
That's ridiculous, bro.
Hear, hear.
What the fuck?
Hey, somebody gets it.
Listen, what's up?
Yeah, do you remember? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dave. I'm just saying this shit is crazy, guys. But go ahead.
Well, but in my argument with Zanuck, he kept admitting, or not admitting, even stating on his own, that if the plane is going west, it's going to lose its conserved momentum eastward just by the mere fact that it's traveling west, right? So what really fucked him up is when I say it goes west-southwest, because then it's headed towards the equator where it needs more eastward tangential velocity. But just by the fact that it went west, it's losing its original conserved momentum eastward. So then it really doesn't make any sense because it would need 500 more by the time it got to the equator to be in sync with the Earth. And it went the opposite direction where it was losing its original conserved momentum. And it doesn't work. Totally makes it impossible to even think about that way, because then it would have to be moving backwards because the air is moving it backwards somehow, which would act like a headwind, he says. But then it would be like causing the plane to be pushed backwards faster than it's flying forwards by the time it got to the equator. And it already had lost a lot of its conserved momentum because it was flying against the spin. So it lost its eastward tangential velocity just by going west. And then west-southwest towards the equator really fucks it up because there's no way to even imagine it. That could even be like the headwind is moving it faster backwards than it's moving forwards to get to a destination. Plus, you and I have talked about the fact that all the flight paths would be different because the city's moving separately from the plane. And like if it was going from like New York to Dallas, then it wouldn't just fly straight to Dallas. It would catch Dallas where it's going to be, not where it is, right? So that it would go downward towards where Dallas is going to be. But then it still has a problem because Dallas doesn't stop moving when the plane gets to it. Dallas is going to continue on that eastward movement, and then somehow the plane would have to move sideways in that one-to-one relationship with Dallas as it's moving eastward while it's trying to land southward on a runway or whatever angle the runway's at. Like the calculations are just impossible to even imagine that proposing, let alone the idea that they would just be able to treat it as stationary and it wouldn't matter that it's moving. I mean, you can understand that common sense, like what? How is that possible? It's moving. It's not the same as stationary, right? Yeah.
It's a bit confusing, isn't it? Because you can be, if you just like sat in a fucking ocean or whatever, and you can say, well, we just seem to be not moving, but you are moving in their model. That's the point. And if and they have movement inside the movement, as in currents. So you can get in a current, and then you see what I'm saying? There's
a wind current. You mean a wind current?
Well, they're saying that it's all moving together, so that's why it's like not noticeable, sort of thing.
But if you call it a current, it's a wind current, right?
Yeah.
Right. So winds go in all directions, so it doesn't work.
Well, there's currents underneath the water as well, though, isn't there?
Well, I guess, but I mean, if that's what you're putting the faith of the wind somehow correcting it without it being precise, there shouldn't be an argument here. There should be one answer. Planes land every single day on a stationary level Earth because that's the way they treat it. Now, if it's spinning and they can still treat it as stationary and level, that's a magic trick that they can't explain. They have no answer to this. They literally have no answer. They have many different answers that they try, but none of them actually make any common sense at all because they contradict each other. You can't say it's a medium moving the plane. If it's pushing the plane, it's called a wind. And if you're higher up, it's going to need to move faster just because you're at a higher altitude for it to be in sync. And they don't even claim it's lockstep anymore because they know fluid dynamics is a thing. So none of it works. They have no answer.
I don't know. They seem to have a few answers. If you look, I don't know. I just think that you get stuck where they say you're moving, but you're not actually moving. I think that's probably where you get a bit stuck.
Well, that's a good place to get stuck because that's ridiculous.
Well, from a physics point of view, it isn't ridiculous because it's just. I see what you're saying, but it does make sense. It makes sense to me anyway.
Oh, then explain it to me. How could it be the wind? How could the air move the plane without it acting like a wind on the plane and winds go in all directions?
Well, I was kind of thinking thinking of it from like Dell's perspective, as I've been doing when I'm thinking about this sort of stuff, because it really made me go back to the very, beginnings of the mechanics of motion. Because, when you step off a thing, in Dell's idea of what's going on, you don't just go to zero. There's a momentum, isn't there? There's a slow loss of momentum. You don't just bang go to zero. So I think that's where I was getting fucked up anyway, because I had to realize, you're carrying some momentum with you. And it took me a while to actually process that. I'm like, oh yeah, shit. You're carrying some momentum with you, of course. So it takes a little while to reach that, whatever it is, terminal velocity, say, where it's the end of it, if you will.
But you see that if the plane starts at 500 miles per hour, conserve momentum because it was on the Earth at that latitude. When it gets to the equator, it needs to be moving with the Earth at 1,000 miles an hour. So there's a 500 mile per hour difference that it needs to make up for. That the pilot would have to be consciously doing, and they're not trained to do that. And they just treat it as stationary. There'd be so many differences; it's uncalculable to even think that it's amazing that we can't just like start counting the differences. The destination's moving faster than where he started off with. That's a difference. If it was stationary, there would be no difference in the movement of the destination compared to where he started from. That's a difference. So right there, the pilot couldn't treat it as stationary and fly straight to his destination because the destination wouldn't be where it started off from. Once he gets there, it would be moved to the east faster than the plane moved to the east, unless the pilot were trained to speed up. And even if he were trained to speed up, he'd have to continue accelerating with the Earth for that difference as it slows down to land in another direction, which never happens. The plane's not made to do that. It have to have jets on the side of the plane to keep it moving with the Earth. Right? You get that, right?
I mean, I'm not a pilot, so I know there's a lot of different things going on in the air, a lot of different currents, temperature changes.
Well, you said it made sense to you, right? So how do you explain it?
No, I'm trying to think about it from the globe's perspective and how they try to explain it. So
how do they explain it?
Well, Jeremy just went through it pretty well, I thought.
Well, he said the medium was moving it, and you agreed that the medium pushing the plane would be a wind.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They say it's in lockstep, don't they? Not
they
totally in lockstep. Well,
yeah, not totally.
They
not
do.
Totally
they do.
Dynamics. They say not.
The only time they say it's not lockstep is when there's wind. If there's no wind, it's moving in lockstep.
No, they say it's not in They say it's not in perfect lockstep because there's fluid dynamics, and they can't say it's in perfect lockstep.
They say it's in lockstep, but not to all scales. Something like that, probably.
Yeah, some kind of like some kind of caveat that makes them like call it and then they try to say, oh, the winds would be so much more affecting the planes than Coriolis. Like there's not two things to deal with. If you're trying to land on the Earth and the Earth is moving, it's totally a different situation than if it's not moving. And if you're dealing with winds moving the plane in all directions, as well as the Earth moving, that's two things to deal with, not one.
You realize there's the mediums moving in their model, and there's no.
Oh my God, Jeremy! Right? How can you keep saying that? The medium doesn't move the plane unless it acts like a wind on the plane.
Just relax. There's a moving medium, the air. It's moving in their model, but there's no wind, right?
Well, that's the thing that contradicts it already. Because if there's no wind, and they're saying it's never perfectly in lockstep because of fluid dynamics, it's never perfectly. They say it's close enough. Then there would always be some little bit of a wind. Because it's not ever perfect. They say that. They claim that. And it wouldn't even matter if it was perfect, because it would have to continue to perfectly move the plane as if the Earth isn't moving. And that's ridiculous to think that it would do that, or that the pilot would put his faith in it doing that. It doesn't work. But I got to go to sleep, guys. I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over again. I love you guys.
All right, brother. God bless you, man.
All right, you too.
All right, Dave. You're all confused. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too, Jeremy.
Nice way to end it.